Welcome to the Dental Marketing Podcast, a podcast that helps dentists win in the online world of modern-day marketing. Each week, we cover the most cutting-edge marketing tactics and strategies that are working right now across our client base to drive leads, phone calls, and more new patients for dentists. Now, here's your host and founder of Kickstart Dental Marketing, Chris Pistorius.
Hey everybody, welcome to the No BS Dental Marketing Podcast. I am your host, Chris Pistorius, and on this show we talk about straight to the point, no BS tactics, tricks, and strategies to help you grow your practice. Now there's no fluff here, just great to the point information that you can start using today to help increase your bottom line. So if you're a dental practice owner, a manager, a front desk professional, or really whatever, be sure to click the subscribe button so you can keep up to date with all of our latest tips and tricks. Now, today we got a really special guest, Dr. Sky Kurlbaum. Dr. Kurlbaum is the owner of Kurlbaum Dental. He is out in Kansas City, Kansas, celebrating a recent Super Bowl victory from his team, the Kansas City Chiefs. We were just talking off air about this, and I'm in Denver, as most of you know, and we're obviously a big Broncos fan. So Dr. Sky and I kind of bump heads a little bit when it comes to football, but what I will say is Dr. Kurlbaum has created an amazing practice, and we definitely want to pick your brain today, Dr. Kurlbaum, on what's made you so successful and just kind of what's going on out there. So thanks so much for being on the show today.
Of course. Thanks for letting us be on here, even though we're Chiefs fans. So we appreciate partnering together. So
yeah, right. I hear you, man. One of these days, the Broncos will get it turned around. I just got to hope, right?
Right.
So tell me about your journey a little bit. You know, we bring on dentists here, and, you know, everybody's got a little bit of a unique story, but why dentistry? How did you grow up as a 5-year-old just, you know, wishing you wanted to be a dentist someday, or how did you get this journey started?
Yeah, pretty much. My grandfather had a dental lab that he started in 1935, and he had 11 children. So they all ended up working in that lab at one time or another. Some of them became dentists, hygienists. So, you know, when I was 5, you know, my favorite hygienist was my aunt, who would clean all our teeth. And then I ended up being the oldest of 5. And there's a 6-year age gap. So she got tired of having to clean all of our teeth on a Saturday. So she'd put me to work, you know, even as a little kid, and have me polishing teeth at like 10 years old of all my little siblings. So I probably never stood much of a chance, you know, to get into another field. It was pretty much dentistry from the beginning, and just getting enough schooling to make it legal and stop doing those illegal, you know, trophies on my brothers and sisters growing up.
Yeah, man, that's pretty cool. So it's kind of been in your blood for a while, right?
Yeah, Thanksgivings, you know, you guys were maybe talking Broncos and Cowboy football and whatnot, and I had my uncles over there discussing whether PFM bond strength was better than gold, you know, this and that, and so I probably never stood a chance.
Yeah, you didn't have a chance. All right, so you know, how long have you had your own practice?
Just since August. So,
Right.
you know, I've been pretty much looking, you know, so that's like 6 months, 7 months.
Yeah.
Been looking ever since I graduated, but kept getting in with practices that I thought I was going to be able to buy into. And then one thing or another that never materialized. So eventually it just came down to, gotta wait around until I can just buy a practice, and finally came together last August. And then quickly after that, a second location popped that was just too good to say no to. Nearby, so we got that one in January. So we went from having no practices, you know, 7 months ago, to having 2 practices, you know, pretty quickly after.
Yeah, that's a cool story. And you know, what was your trigger? I guess I want to go to the second location here in a few minutes, but what was your trigger to start your own? I mean, was that always the plan? I mean, from the beginning, or were you just kind of waiting for the right opportunity?
That was always the plan from the beginning, but you know, really a lot of people kind of put out there that you shouldn't really start on your own from day one. You know, you should go work with someone else, learn. And I think that turned out to be very, very true, because I'm getting to apply things that I saw from other people I worked with. You know, the good, the bad, all of it, put it all together, kind of do our own recipe. But always wanted to be an owner. I grew up helping my family run a tomato farm, so not only doing cleanings as a 10-year-old kind of thing, but then helping in high school run a business where we sold tomatoes and things like that. So I'd
Wow.
always kind of been geared towards running my own business. And that
Yeah.
was definitely the appeal that made me not waver off of going into dentistry, was the idea of being a business owner. So
Yeah.
again, I was always going to end up owning a business. It's just a matter of when, where, how I made it come together.
Yeah. Would you agree that, dental schools do a great job of producing dentists, but not so much running a business or learning how to run a business? Do you think that's the case?
Definitely. We had a business class the entire way through, and I don't want to pick on our faculty in case he ever had, he did a great job, but I think it's an impossible task to teach, 200 future dentists business, because, 100 of them don't care because they're never going to own their own business. They're going to work for someone else. The middle 50 might care a lot, and he can speak to them. And then there's another 50 that they're going to run it, but then they're going to hire someone else to kind of do everything. So I think that's kind of the difficult challenge of dental school, is how do you, train. But, to your point, like a crown, we all have to know how to do a crown. So that curriculum can be very the same. But, a business curriculum, they almost should break it into 3 different classes or something, and let you pick how involved you are going to be.
Yeah. And, it's a big deal because, everybody, this isn't just dentistry, but, and people that have listened to my podcast before have heard me, kind of harp on this, but most people go into business because they're good at something, whether it's baking pies or, they're a dentist or whatever it may be. And, they're the technicians of their work, they're doing all the work. Well, that's awesome. But if you don't have the skills to be able to hire, to scale, to do processes, to do accounting, to do marketing, there's a good likelihood you're going to fail. And it's actually one of the top reasons why most small businesses fail, is because people get into business because they're good at something, but it's not always necessarily running a business. So I think it's really cool to hear you, even, at the tomato farm. I mean, I'm sure you learned some good business life lessons about, all right, we sell here, we buy here, sell here, basic business sense on, how to run things. Did that help kind of develop you being able to jump into not just one, but, almost 2 practices almost immediately?
Yeah, definitely. Because, as a high schooler, helping manage, teams that would go out and pick tomatoes, then we'd have to go deliver the tomato. There's such a resource management kind of there, and then HR and kind of, and then here I am in high school, organizing other high school kids. So it really kind of forced me to grow up really quickly in a business sense that way. But kind of to your point, dental school is designed to produce dentists, not kind of the other thing. And you can be a fantastic dentist and not kind of get the other. So yeah, definitely having that background in business kind of helped me be ready for where we are now.
Yeah. Now you've got obviously a lot of family involved in dentistry, but other than family, did you have a mentor kind of helping you out with this at all?
Other than family, I should have thought of it that way, but when I said it, family members jumped to my mind because, like you said, I have a lot of them. I've had good mentors. Since I graduated, that I've worked for. I won't necessarily drop them by name, because from mentors, you're going to learn good things, you're going to learn bad things. I'm very grateful for the experiences I got, but you're not doing your due diligence if you don't learn from them what to do and what not to do. So I got a lot of different experiences, a lot of different mentors, but as far as people I worked for or non-family, none of them stick out as like, that's the person. But for me, more, it's that I had a lot of different mentors that I looked for. So I really got to kind of pick and choose and say, you're good at this, you're good at this, you're good at this, you're not good at this, you're not good at this, and kind of put it all together.
Yeah. I think, a lot of the people listening, or a lot of the dentists that are thinking of maybe starting their own practice or adding a practice, are curious. And I get this question a lot too about stress levels, right? So when you're an associate, you kind of clock in, clock out, you get your paycheck, and things are pretty chill, right? But when you start your own business, that changes, right? Because you get people that depend on you. You're just starting out, you just started your new practice, you just added another practice. Undoubtedly stress levels are going to be increased, but how do you manage that? How do you manage like the work-life balance? Maybe you could, help some of our listeners out that may be having those types of questions right now.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful because grass is always greener on the other side. You know, whatever struggles you might be having as an associate, you're like, oh, this will all be better when I'm an owner. But kind of to your point, you know, you're just trading off different stressors. But I think for me personally, you know, as an associate, you know, kind of being more of a leader where I'm the oldest of five, you know, I'm an Eagle Scout. There's just
Nice.
my whole life I was put in leadership positions. So
Yeah.
even when I was an associate, I was getting pushed into that leadership role. But for me, it was very unfulfilling because these people were looking to me to lead. But as an associate, I couldn't really deliver on promises or things,
Yeah.
solutions they wanted me to give them to the problems. So kind of to your point, yeah, there is a lot of stress there. There's a lot of responsibility, but you know, I might be the wrong one to ask because I might, you know, talk some people into doing it who maybe weren't ready. But that's where I'd kind of say, you know yourself, kind of know what you need. And for me, good, bad, or ugly, I needed to be able to make those calls for people, and I needed this stress, not the other stress. So
Yeah.
that's how I'd caution people thinking about getting into it: is don't just think it's going to be, you know, sunshine and roses and perfect and you run your own practice, but
Yeah.
if you know yourself well enough to know which kind of stress you're going to deal with better. For me personally, this kind of stress is much better because, you know, win, lose, or draw, you know, succeed or fail. Now it's on me and I can't blame anyone else.
Right.
And I'm much more comfortable with that than sitting here going, you know, man, these people I'm working for are going to run our business into the ground and I can't do anything about
Right.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I remember when I started my business, it's almost been 14 years now. You know, I was like, man, I don't want to have a boss anymore. I'm gonna go start my own company. And man, I screwed that one up because, you know, I went from having one boss to, you know, when you take on clients as an agency, you know, really now I have like 60 bosses, right? It's just a different way to look at, you know, who your boss is, I guess. But I think that's a pretty valid point. So, you know, you jumped in, you know, you hit the ground running, your new practice is, you know, on its way. And then all of a sudden you get this opportunity for a second practice, right? And so you tell us, you know, this early in the process, because you're probably one of the few that I've talked to that jumped into a second practice as quickly. What was your thought process there? Was it just that good of a deal that you had to jump on it? Or, you know, was there any hesitation at all? Or were you just like, let's do it?
I think the timing of it being that quick had to do with it being that good of an opportunity, that good of a location.
Mm-hmm.
But I think why we were ready to do it is we knew we were always going to have to take on another practice because all
Yeah.
the ones I've been an associate on were more like 8 chairs, 9 chairs,
Yeah.
bigger practices.
Yeah.
And my wife had gone to dental school and graduated in May, and the idea had always been to kind of work together. So I've been searching for that 8 chair practice, that 9 chair practice. And I don't want to give out all my secret sauce, but I guess I will a little bit. That's the point of this podcast.
Right.
You know, I had to kind of think outside the box when I couldn't find that 8 chair, 9 chair practice I wanted. So when the first practice in August came available, they only had two, you know, chairs that even operated.
Wow.
So I immediately knew that it was too small, even for me, but definitely for two dentists. But we kind of had the vision to look at the 1,300 square feet and say to ourselves, you know, in fact, this used to be the waiting room that I'm sitting in right now. They had
Oh,
a giant
wow.
waiting room up front and we turned it into another operatory. So,
Cool.
you know, step one kind of with the first practice was to take it from 2 operating chairs to 4, which we were able to do pretty succinctly and quick. We had that done, you know, August. By December, we had 4 chairs operational in here. But even at 4, you know, it wasn't going to be big enough. You know, I knew we needed that 8 to 9, and my wife was kind of getting ready to join us. So the timing of it, you know, I think that's why it came together the way it did. Is we knew that was always the next step, and we just kind of had our eye out for, you know, okay, is the right practice, and it just popped at that timing, and we just had to make a move on it. But I kind of liken it to having like Irish twins or like, you know, being in diapers one
Yeah.
time thing. So because we bought the one practice, so to turn around and do it again, it was all fresh in our minds. Everyone on the staff kind of knew what we were doing. And actually, I think made it a little bit easier because we hadn't
Yeah.
settled back. We were just still uncomfortable from the first one. So it's like, you know, what's one more? Come on, bring it on. We're ready.
Yeah. Yeah. What about hiring? Do you have any tips on, like, you know, how to hire people? What are you looking for? I mean, have you had success so far hiring? What's your experience with that?
Yeah, I know it's very difficult to hire right now, and I don't want to backseat drive anyone else's
Yeah.
situation and make it sound easy because it is definitely not easy.
Yeah.
There's no secret formula here, but I'll just kind of share like what we do, and then maybe people can relate to, So what we do is one, make sure we're very, very nice to our employees because, they're not dime a dozen. If you're mean to people, they'll leave.
Yep.
And you're going to spend more money training and finding new people. It costs you money to not have continuity. So when we have people, we hold them. And even when we bought the practice from the beginning, we had 3 or 4 people that we'd been working with over the years and other practice that were just ready to come on with us from day one, just kind of looking for us to have a practice for them to relocate to. So that made it kind of easy in the beginning. And when we were getting ready for the second practice, it was definitely a challenge to kind of say, are we going to retain staff? Are we going to start kind of anew? And for us personally, it just made more sense to start anew just because we had so many existing employees already. We had so many connections to people we'd worked with before. But kind of tips or tricks or things like that. I mean, again, there's no secret sauce. We pay very well because we don't want to have to be turning
Right.
people over, and we see the value of having those premium employees that aren't going to be a dime a dozen. And the other thing that we'll so we either pay very well, but we also are willing to train people. So
Mm.
that's something that we kind of will do differently maybe than some other offices we're the last couple assistants we brought on, one of them worked for a water delivery company. The other one worked in a warehouse. We're willing to train though, because you can't train someone to show up on time to work. You
Yeah.
can't train someone to value what it is you're giving them. So
Yeah.
when you can take someone who was, making good money, but not really, and you can give them a raise to come over to, get an introduction into healthcare, as I always kind of talk to them about, and maybe take someone who thought to themselves, I can never do that. I didn't, I only graduated high school. I didn't go to, I didn't go get a degree, and kind of say to them, it's okay. We can train you and you can get into, a healthcare kind of job.
Yeah.
That joy that kind of brings those people, it's really special. And then the patients kind of feel that because, that employee wants to be there. They're
Yeah.
not like, I only, they want to be there, and the patients can feel that. So
Yeah. You're helping them start a career sometimes, versus just a job. So,
right.
yeah. And, I think you're on to something there with, the training, because like you said, we look for people that, personally that, is going to be a good culture fit for us first, right? They're just good people, right? And they're nice to people and their personalities are good, because that's the stuff you can't train. If they don't already have that, it's going to be hard to train that, right? So that's kind of where we've shifted to is, it's marketing. We can teach that, right? But we just can't teach some of the other core concepts. So
Are you looking to grow your practice but are a little unclear on what the best way is? Let us help you out. We have over 13 years of experience in helping practices just like yours increase new patient growth. Just go to kickstartdental.com and sign up for a free strategy session where we will give you some great insights on how to take your practice to the next level.
all right, cool. So, you're a few months into this now. What's surprised you so far? What's one thing about starting these businesses that's maybe not shocked you, but surprised you that it was either a little bit harder than you thought or maybe easier than you thought?
Probably surprised me a little is, dentists or just people in general tend to be pretty, we have a high self, we think we're, cooler than we are. We think we're more special than we are. And, I kind of reflect on that myself, where it's like, oh, these patients love me and I'm their person. I'm always going to be their person. But, you get some humility when, we take on 2 practices where, this practice, the patients had been here 30 and 40 years. The other practice had been there, 20 plus years. And just seeing how, as long as we're nice and treat the patient the right way, they can just very smoothly transition to us. And that surprised me a little bit. I think I anticipated a little more turnover than we actually ended up having. But then again, it's kind of humbling because then you think about it and go, well, am I really that special? So if they're with me for 20 or 30 years and then I go retire, they're not going to all, I don't know, cry themselves to sleep for a night. They're just going to move on to the next person. So, and I think the key there is that, we treat people the right way too. We put a lot of hard work into making sure that those patients felt valued and like this could still be their dental home and that they didn't have to, Yeah, so there's some finesse that goes into that to make sure you're doing it the right way, but that kind of surprised me. I anticipated a lot more turnover than we ended up having. So
Yeah, well, that's good. What do you think of, and I'm not trying to put you in a corner here, but I get asked a lot, in marketing realm of there's a lot of individual private dentists out there that are concerned about corporate dentistry and just the presence that they have in their local markets. And, it seems like DSOs have different models. Some of them are obviously, DSOs, and other ones like Heartland kind of just keep, local names, and, you can't really tell that they're corporate dentistry. Do you feel any pressure from corporate dentistry? And, how do you see how your private practice may differ a little bit from corporate dentistry?
I definitely feel that pressure, and I've worked for several, and I currently work for one DSO too, on the side doing Alzheimer and dementia patients and nursing homes, and that's all based out of Texas. So, I don't think you can work in dentistry and not feel their constant presence, and I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you just ignore them being there. I think you have to make every decision thinking about them and kind of preparing and figuring out, what makes us, why would someone pick us over one of those
Right.
practices? And then understand also that those places are going to have advantages that you don't.
Yeah.
And if you don't recognize that, then you're just kidding yourself.
Yeah.
So there's pros and cons to both. For our practice, I mean, you asked about the second practice, well,
Yeah.
okay, so technically we are a tiny little DSO that
Yeah,
has
that's
two
true.
practices. But being aware of, the pros and cons of DSOs and corporate dentistry, we're positioning ourselves, that would be like a Heartland or a Pacific or anything like that. But, we'll keep growing hopefully and maybe grow towards being like a mini DSO kind of thing. But being aware of the advantages of private practice, the advantages of the corporate, and then maybe trying to hybridize somewhere in the middle where we can kind of keep that, private practice, local flair where you really feel like you're coming to see the dentist and not going to, the Walmart of dentistry or whatnot.
Yeah.
But still key into some of those advantages, like the big, like Patterson and Henry Schein and places like that will give discounts to bigger accounts and
Right.
things like that. That's just business. It makes sense. But
Sure.
so if you can get some of that while still kind of keeping that local flavor, I think walking that line is kind of our differentiator or what we're trying to do well so that people don't just feel like they're going to see a different dentist every time
Yeah.
they go.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Tell me about, we're starting to see, not really starting, but we've been seeing more and more general dentists trying to do more services in-house, right? I mean, you see GPs now placing implants, you see them doing Invisalign, you see all kinds of different types, even Botox, right? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that's the future of dentistry, where there's going to be more services offered by a GP in-house, kind of all one shop, or where do you think this is going?
I think that pressure's kind of always been there, and you really see it, in the past with like root canals and things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the dentists that are retiring right now will look at dentists like me that are newer and be like, "Oh, you got to do all the root canals for your patients." Molar endo. That's their
Hmm.
big thing that they want us kind of doing. And to your point, I think the newer generation is more like, yeah, on implants, on Botox, on some of these other things that patients want. But we're not different than any other field. The consumer will drive things, the patient will drive things. And I'm seeing this a lot with my wife, Dr. Nicole, where, she was talking to me about referring different services. And what she's
Yeah.
kind of starting to see is there's such a strong connection that's made between the patient and the dentist that they don't want to be referred.
Yeah.
So a lot of that driving force is coming from the consumers, coming from the patient, where they want you
Hmm.
to do that service for them, and they want you to go get the training for it. And if you tell them
Yeah.
you're going to get the training for it, they're like, all right, I'll be your first patient to get that sinus slip with you when you're done. And it always kind of surprises you and says, you want me to do that when, I've just got the training for it. You don't want to go to the specialist, but people connect to you, they trust you, they
Sure.
trust the training that you're going to go get. So I do think it'll continue to always be kind of a pull that way, especially for dentists that can connect really well with their patients. It's a funny, tiny story on that that's directly related is our little daughter, Ruth, she has a tight tongue, so they might do like a little tongue tie,
Hmm.
procedure on her. And we went to the pedodontist that we were very, very familiar with. She's our person, so like we went to her and said, hey, can you help our daughter with this? And she was kind of sitting there going, you know what, I got to be honest with you guys, I don't do this all the time. We are about to go get training on this. You should go to this other dentist, this other specialist in town, and he'd take care of you. So kudos to her for knowing that she's good or not. But it's funny because even two dentists, who my wife immediately looks at me after we left and she's like, should we just wait for, her to get her training and then and I'm sitting there like, man, I'm living this. It's like you connect to one person and you're like, this is the person I trust. And I want this person to provide all my services, not go to other people. And so I think it's been constant. I think it just kind of shifts on what procedures, before it was crowns and root canals and things. And now, to your point, it's shifting to implants, Botox. I want to do all my things with you. Can you do my taxes too? Like I'd like to do everything for me.
That's a good idea, actually. I mean, we're seeing more clients reach out to us that are they're really branding themselves more as like dental spas. Right. Like where it's, Botox and, they're doing a lot of other stuff as well. So it'll be interesting to see, how that evolves. And, I just know for myself, it's a convenience thing, right? I mean, if you referred me out for implants or whatever it might be, then I got to schedule another appointment. They might be booked out a month. Right. And then I probably got to get to know the person. And, it is a convenience factor as well. So, okay. So what's the future of technology? I mean, you're a younger dentist, you're out of school. I mean, what's the latest, what's the things that you're most excited about in the future of dentistry from a technological standpoint?
Yeah. So, I think 3D scanning with our, iTeros and, Prime Scan and just all the different scanners out there that can kind of digitally recreate what we're seeing in the mouths. Like that's a huge area of growth right now. There's a lot of different technologies, but like that's specifically the one that I'm most excited about and most comfortable with, because I've been doing that the entirety of my career since I've graduated, is scanning teeth instead of taking the traditional impressions and things like that. We just see a better fit with crowns and partials and everything we do with that, because it's just so much more precise. Kind of dovetailing in with that though too is, we do go into the nursing homes and do, but kind of doing that, we kind of pulled those two technologies kind of together. And this is kind of related to your question, as far as we've been using a lot of those scanners to be able to do teledentistry and remote dentistry. Yeah. And in fact, we have a pending patent on a system that we were doing with that, with our remote and teledentistry over on the mobile side of things. So where we really want to grow in the upcoming years, with these two practices, and if we eventually grow past that, we'll be kind of using some of those things that we've kind of perfected over on the mobile side of things, and bringing that to our private practice, patients, where, if they want to be seen on a Saturday, but, I can't come in on that Saturday, using the laws that have changed in 2023 to allow, a hygienist to work a whole office on a Saturday if she wanted, but then be remotely monitored, checked by me, the dentist. So we have a lot of those things kind of growing, but, you got to have the patient base kind of flowing through. So, that's kind of our hustle to kind of get these offices, gain the trust of our community and earn that trust, get a strong patient base, and then start offering these things to people, 7:00 at night appointments where, you run in shifts and you have a hygienist that's there working, but I don't necessarily have to be there in person. If you have perfect teeth and haven't had a filling in 5 years kind of thing, I can look at your x-rays and pictures remotely and say, yep, you're good.
Good to go. Yeah.
So just kind of, using some of these different, because that's something that's really popped up the last couple. I mean, we're talking on a Zoom right now.
Yeah.
We didn't even know what Zoom was in 2018. So, the remote technologies, the teledental technologies, most people think of teledentistry and they think, oh, I'm going to talk to a dentist on a phone. Maybe that's how they thought about it at first. But as we've kind of, explored different ways we can apply, those rules and laws, we're just kind of excited to offer those advantages to our patients.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Dr. Kurlbaum, I know you're busy. I really appreciate you taking the time with us today. if you don't mind, I'd like to follow up with you in 6 months or so, see how many practices you have by then, and just get an update on what's going on. Would that be okay with you?
Yep, sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for being a part of it. And everybody, thanks so much for listening in today. And if you liked today's episode, please do hit that subscribe button. We release a new episode like this every week to help busy dental professionals like you get the most out of your marketing strategy and just overall tips and strategies of what leaders like Dr. Kurlbaum are doing to stay on top of things. So thanks again, and we'll see you all very soon.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Dental Marketing Podcast. Make sure to visit our website, www.kickstartdental.com/podcast, where you can subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you are ready to grow your practice, then you might want to schedule a free strategy session with us. Just go to kickstartdental.com and click the free strategy session button and give us 15 minutes of your time to change your practice forever. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And thanks for listening to the Dental Marketing Podcast by Kickstart Dental Marketing, where dentists go to win online.